Hey everybody, welcome back to another reaction video. This is the House of the Dragon reaction, so I'm reacting to a reaction, but hopefully I'll have some context in there because I'm not well versed on House of the Dragon at all. I watched Game of Thrones all the way through. I actually had to play catch up through most of it. By the time I actually tuned in to Game of Thrones, season 6 was about to start, so I had to watch 1 through 5, just binge watch that as fast as possible before the 6th season started, and I did it. But I also didn't get a lot of sleep. This is requested by a Patreon subscriber. If you too would like to join the Patreon, link down below in the description will get you there. Throw a like in the video if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Hit that notification bell. That way you know when videos post immediately, and you can come check them out. And let's go.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode.
As always, link down below in the description for the original video. Go throw it some love.
So to Nerd Soup, I am Bo Oliver, joined here today with Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey, and we are back to talk about the first trailer for HBO's Game of Thrones spin-off series, The House of the Dragon. A prequel series set hundreds of years before Game of Thrones, and obviously hundreds of years before the fall of House Targaryen ruling over the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. A surprise trailer. I wasn't expecting this. They kind of just dropped it on us, of course, Monday morning, disrupt our plans, but it's nice to get back into this world. Everyone said that the production value was going to be insane because the budget was going to be more similar to Game of Thrones Season 8, maybe even bigger than the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. So just from the look of it, it looks like that same world. And I think a lot of people are going to be sucked right back in after getting a quick glimpse of this.
Oh yeah, I'm already all aboard. It didn't take much for me. It was definitely a nice surprise waking up and seeing that. They dropped it at like 5:30 in the morning Eastern.
Whoa, that's early. What's surprising is I don't know if people are going to be too into this, since Game of Thrones ended on such a sour note for a lot of people. A lot of people. I don't know the numbers or the stats of how many people, but it seemed like a lot of folks, the overwhelming reaction to this finale of Game of Thrones was negative. Negative. Whether it was the darkness of the battle scenes, which I get, because you're trying to paint this picture of it is chaotic, it is dark, nobody can see anything. You don't even know what the hell you're fighting. But yeah, it was pretty abrupt, if you ask me. It was an abrupt ending.
I don't know if that's the most ideal time, but by the time I woke up, people were already talking about it. Already got millions of views. So it seems like, you know, obviously we know what happened with Season 8 and the discourse around that, but I think a lot of people are excited for this, and I know I am. Just getting glimpses of the banners and the dragon logos and Targaryen characters and things like that. The Iron Throne. You see that Iron Throne?
That's cool because they're going for the whole story, the myth, right? That Littlefinger and Varys used to talk about, that it was made from the thousands of blades of Aegon's enemies, and you see all the different blades surrounding the throne. So it's not the big chair that we're used to from the books, but they're hinting at it. It's a nice nod.
It looks a little different too. It's not as symmetrical. It's definitely a different throne. I mean, obviously...
This is the ship of Theseus. They've been remodeling the throne, renovating it time and time again. Different
story. I didn't
story.
say Robert just kind of redid the Red Keep once he got in there, so you could just sum it up to that. But, I mean, it's not quite the book one. I don't think you can ever possibly do that, but they tried. Looks like they got like halfway there. It's like, I think we ran out of swords. Let's just keep a spiked death pit surrounding the throne. That's kind of badass.
It is very badass. And it looks like in that shot, the young woman approaching the throne is a young Rhaenyra Targaryen, played by Millie Alcock. And they've been rolling out these castings periodically throughout the year. It's not lesser characters, but younger versions of these characters. So that's interesting. We speculated that the story may jump around. So maybe this is when her father first got on the throne, or some sort of important scene between her and her father, because we know that relationship was very close for a long time. She was supposed to be his heir. So I'm excited to get those scenes as well. Game of Thrones didn't really deal in flashbacks. I think their first flashback was the first scene of season 5 with Cersei, so it very rarely happened. But for a show like this, where it is spanning multiple decades, you need those moments and those scenes.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go back and forth quite a bit, and we see that other shot of her in front of the Iron Throne as well. So
yeah, there's a couple shots of her when she's younger.
She's definitely one of the...
It makes sense that you would show more of the House of Targaryen if the entire show is literally titled that. you might want to actually show like multiple times of it.
Main characters of this story and kind of, going back and forth, showing that relationship, her upbringing, and kind of, because I don't know how long the series is actually going to go. So if they're only going to do a season or two, it's important to get that backstory in ways that you don't have the advantage of doing it over the period of 5 or 6 seasons. So going back, getting a glimpse into that relationship and really building this character, I think is very important.
What did you think about?
One thing that's really important is it carries on the very similar show running of Game of Thrones, which is anybody can go at any time. There's no sacred cows. It's just a free-for-all of who knows what's going to happen. It's got to include that, or it's just going to feel different, but not like a good different, like a weird different.
That shot of Paddy Considine as King Viserys, sitting on the throne. He's got Blackfire. He's got the House Targaryen ring. It's kind of all you need. Establish who's the ruler, who's in charge here.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, he's like, you can't really see his face too much, but just that presence, sitting on the throne with that sword, with the ring right there. I'm very much looking forward to his portrayal because he's a very good actor, and this is like really new for a lot of fans. I mean, we've heard plenty of stories about Targaryen kings of old, but he's one that's very complex, and like we talked about, his relationships with everyone around him, but mostly his daughter, is a very important catalyst for the story.
Right, and right before that shot, we have the shot of Otto Hightower. Once again, we don't really see his face. We don't see his face at all. We just see the pin for the hand of the king. And that's another...
That's all I fucking need, man.
Right.
It's crazy how little I need just to get so excited.
It's another complicated relationship because obviously he's an advisor, but he's got his daughter there as well that we also see in this trailer being played by Olivia Cook. So that dynamic, it's always fun when the hand of the king and the actual king aren't on the same page because they're both the two most powerful figures in all the country. So it's easy for them to draw up sides and lines and stuff like that. But like I mentioned, we also saw Olivia Cook as Lady Alicent Hightower. There's one shot of her running through a hall holding a knife. Kind of fits her character.
It's Game of Thrones, man.
It's Game of Thrones. That's what people do.
We back.
And there's also
someone's getting stabbed.
You're not lasting very long in this world.
There's also that great shot of Lady Alicent and Princess Rhaenyra at the tournament, which is the infamous tournament that was celebrating the 5 years of marriage between Alicent Hightower and King Viserys, and that's when she showed up in her green gown. And Rhaenyra showed up in black. So they drew.
One thing I'm noticing very quickly is there is a huge gap of knowledge between people who just watched Game of Thrones and people who've actually read the books. These guys have clearly read the books. And I'm just listening, trying to pick up as much information as possible, but I know I'm missing about 90% of it.
Sides, the blacks and the greens. But we'll get into that a little bit later. It was cool to see also the House Stark banner.
Oh yeah, seeing all the banners, seeing just that tourney. I mean, it looks very crisp. And we talk about like the up to production value and the budget for this series being closer to the end of Game of Thrones in the beginning. I mean, just compare the production value to this tourney versus the one we see in season 1, right? And like it definitely has like a bit of epicness to it. I think it's gonna look beautiful once we get to see that play out on screen. But yeah, this is the implication of this tourney, not just the action set pieces we're probably going to get, but this is definitely a sequence that I'm looking forward to playing out because, like you said, this is what...
I got to rewatch season 1. Was it really that, like, cheaply made to the point where you could tell it was cheaply made?
Where, things kind of really start to take off.
Yeah, it's starting off with a budget that's reportedly bigger than their season 8 budget, talking about Game of Thrones. So it's going to start with a movie budget. There's some shots here that look so clean, like the 2 knights just fighting, and like you mentioned with the tournament. Another great shot in this trailer is the shot of Princess Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon, and I'm guessing they're at Dragonstone here, but the way that they drape them in the grays, you could tell that there's a difference between when they were younger and when they are older. When all those political pressures start, you really start feeling it because they're characters who are going to be making moves, and we know what happens to characters who try to make moves in this game, try and climb the ladder. But he also did the voiceover for this trailer, and I thought his voiceover was great. Good narration.
That's half the reason why you get Matt Smith, right?
Yeah, I mean, he really impressed me in the last movie I saw him in, Last Night in Soho. Obviously, he's a very famous actor, and he's good, but I was just seeing him in that made me so much more...
That's pretty cool that they got Doctor Who to be in this. That's pretty amazing.
Excited for Thrones because Thrones offers these actors to be very charismatic. A lot of these characters, it's about your presence and how can you dominate those around you and on screen. You know, it's not only the game within Game of Thrones, but it's the acting game. It's like the acting fucking Olympics. Well, so that's the guy you get.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important aspect of Game of Thrones, right? Because it does rely so much on character dynamics and relationships, and this maybe even more so, or just as much as the original series.
I think so.
All the family drama and everything that ensues. So the material allows for actors to really show off that charisma and kind of, when they all work together and play off each other, that's when you get these great emotional or tense scenes or just like dialogue heavy scenes that pack as much punch as an action.
Was the actors in Game of Thrones, were a lot of them unknown, or were they just not known to a worldwide audience? That's a question I have. Because if they were just completely unknown, that's like the best gig in the world. If you're an unknown actor and you get to play this part and just really give it your all, and everybody's giving it their all.
Sequence.
Like, you're bound to do good
scenes
things
here, but I wonder if this moment with him walking with the torch is the same as when we see that dragon statue or monument, memorial. I don't know what it is, or maybe that's a scene that takes place in like the present day, where it's like dragons used to rule the kingdoms. Now we're gonna tell you the story of how they all fucking died. At first, I thought it was real. I thought, oh boy, getting a big boy right off the bat. Is that Valerian?
Oh no, we're gonna get some massive boys.
Oh yeah, big boys all around.
Some fucking
thick boys.
Thick boys
with bad breath.
There's gonna be so many great scenes with dragons in this. I'm actually kind of pumped for that.
Hot breath.
It's amazing how all of them have fucking dragons, dude. That doesn't seem like a tenable situation. Obviously, I mean, won't spoil anything.
Yeah.
What about this shot? We see Lord Corlys being played by Stephen Toussaint. We see his wife, Rhaenys Valerian, being played by Eve Best. And we also see the rest of their family. Laena Valerian, their daughter, and Sir Vaemon Valerian. So that was cool to see them fill out the rest of that roster. I mean, the costumes in Game of Thrones, it's another, not a small detail, but the attention to detail that they always paid to make these costumes like they were described in the books. It's why you give them the benefit of the doubt going into it, because everything just already looks great. But these designs are awesome. They look cool with the white hair. And
they do.
Going to meet the king at a feast, because the Iron Throne is in the back there, and they have the table set up like the feasts we always used to watch.
Like a good feast scene.
I do like a good feast scene.
I mean, always. Valerian's probably one of like the character I might be most.
Love a feast scene when the ale is flowing and they're just filling them up or whatever, and it's like a celebration or something. Fantastic.
I'm excited for in the show.
Stuff.
I mean, just known as like he's the sea snake, man.
The sea snake.
That's a nickname, and he does play such an integral role in kind of how the ensuing conflict plays out. And yeah, I think there was a shot later on in that teaser as well. I think his son is fighting. I don't know if it's Kristen Cole or something. It's hard to tell. He's not really wearing white, but it could be a little bit in the past. But getting a glimpse of one of the more powerful houses, I think they're like at this point they might be the richest house in the Seven Kingdoms.
Yes.
So getting that quick glimpse at them is great. And yeah, like you said, the design is tremendous. And I think for everyone and for all the houses in this series, like so far, it just looks like they all have their distinct looks and styles while keeping true to that kind of classic Westerosi type of fashion sense.
Yeah, from top to bottom. I mean, the fucking rooms, the Red Keep even looks better. We mentioned the Iron Throne, the costumes. If the writing is there, this could be as big as Game of Thrones, just because of the budget.
If the writing is there, and if this becomes a hit, will the writers actually stick it out and end the show how they should end the show? Or will they get so popular that they get hired by Disney to do Star Wars films and they cut and run? That's a good question.
It's similar to what the Amazon series is doing, starting off big because you have some of that built-in audience now. Just going quickly to the one shot that we see of Sononya Mizuno, who is playing Massaria. Mm-hmm. And her description on Wikipedia is that she becomes an important ally for Prince Daemon. Obviously, people can begin as allies and then become foes very easily in this world. But her look, that look of confusion, that look of fear, all those emotions combined, that's what you always get in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
because the shit going on around you, you just can't help but be taken aback.
I'm excited for this character as well. She's going to kind of play like that, maybe Varys type role, and I think that's awesome because, like, as much as, like, this is a different time period and with different rule in hand and kind of different things going on, like, it's still very much the way Westeros is set up. A lot of the same elements are going to be there. You're going to have your quote-unquote masters or mistress of whispers that's going to collect data and try to the scheming is going to be apparent in this series, and I can't wait to see this character kind of get into the mix of things and kind of stir the pot behind the scenes or kind of light the flames.
Right, and I think, George R.R. Martin always does such a good job of giving his female characters important roles in his stories, kind of split down the middle, where it's like there is as equal amount of important female characters as there are male characters, and she's just one of the many characters I'm excited to see. I think it's her and Alicent Hightower for me are the most I'm anticipating, because I know so much about Alicent and because I don't really know much about Mysaria. So I'm anticipating, how is she going to operate in this world? What is her end game? And Alicent is just, she could be Cersei 2.0. So.
Yeah, I said that in like our preview video that she has the potential to be this series' Cersei, because just all that, the position she's in and all that she kind of does, it is.
I totally think you got to have similar characters to Game of Thrones, just not like copying the character, obviously, but you need the villain. You need somebody like a Joffrey where everyone's just like, can somebody just end that person, please? You need those kind of characters.
Very much.
That just draws everybody together.
Type character.
Whether it's hate or love.
She's my favorite character, so I cannot wait to see this portrayal and how they kind of go about telling her story and following her through however many episodes or seasons they decide to tell the story for.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there with that character, and it's not just that she's cruel and mean like Cersei, but it's a woman in a position of power trying to acquire more power. So it's not, I mean, there are...
Although we do like cruel and mean as well. There's got to be at least one of them.
Definitely some overlaps with their personality.
I mean, Rhaenyra is just she's a problem. And to see all these, I mean, that's...
Well, their relationship is so important because they start out as friends. And that's why it was so important to get those younger actresses to play those characters. And then they find themselves at odds, to put things simply.
It's hard to say, just like because of going off of the written material that we do have on this story, and the character descriptions from either the World of Ice and Fire and other things like that. There really is potential to have like a cast and characters that are equal to just interests and intrigue and kind of the positions they're in. And
they also have an ending. So I don't think people should be worried about, are they going to be keeping up with the books? Are the books going to surpass them? There's definitely an end game in sight here where you don't have to worry about those things. Nothing needs to be rushed. This could also be, it doesn't have to be as long as Game of Thrones. It could be 4 or 5 seasons.
Holy shit, is that good news? That is good news. So hopefully, well, you still got to worry about the writers taking off, becoming popular, leaving, and then you could get a totally different feel and look of the series. So that's still kind of a worry, but that's nice to hear there's at least an ending to this story that we will get that's at least semi-coherent and not rushed.
But that also depends on its popularity, because if this, I don't think it's going to be as big as Game of Thrones, but if it can even acquire a quarter of that audience, this show's going to be around for a long time. And this is a great first look.
Definitely. I'm excited.
All right, guys, that is it for our House of the Dragon trailer reaction breakdown video. We will be back as they release more promotional material. We're still a bit of a ways away here until the release date, but I'm excited, man. Like I said, this just dropped on me.
Link down below in the description for the original video. Go throw it some love. I absolutely adored Game of Thrones like many millions did. And I don't think it'll be quite as large as Game of Thrones. I think it's going to be a little bit less because people were pretty turned off at the end of Season 8 of Game of Thrones. So I think you're going to miss out on maybe a couple million. I think bringing in Matthew Smith obviously helps. A little star power. You know, maybe people will watch the first couple episodes just to see him. But yeah, I don't think it'll have the same societal impact that Game of Thrones had. That was really lightning in a bottle. It was the most watched thing on television that we have seen in a long time, since like Cheers was on or something. I just remember every day talking about Game of Thrones, talking about what could happen in the next week, you know. It was legitimately water cooler talk at the job, and I'm sure school, if you were in school during that time, it was very much the same. But yeah, we would talk about it at work all the time. I would listen to podcasts of Talk the Thrones, anything I could find that could better explain things that were happening that maybe I didn't quite fully understand or fully grasp. You know, people that read the books would kind of fill in the gaps of why did this happen? Why did that happen? What happened here? Who are these characters? You know, that kind of stuff. Are you excited for House of the Dragon? Did you watch Game of Thrones? Were you disappointed in Season 8? If you were disappointed in Game of Thrones Season 8, are you going to give House of the Dragon a chance? What are some things you would love to see in the show that was missing in Game of Thrones? Or some things you'd love to see in the show that you know about that you're questioning whether or not they'll include it in the show? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching that. That was interesting. That was a lot of background and a lot of context that you really didn't get just by watching a trailer. If you just watched Game of Thrones and didn't read any of the source material, you were just as lost as I was. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel, and I shall see you on the next one.